Arizona flies in Sunday to face the most dissected, analyzed team that's 11-4 in NFL history. Sal Paolantonio joins us to talk about what the quarterback and the coach need to do to prep for another deep playoff run. Sean Green will join us to give you his picks on Cowboys, Lions, Dolphins, Ravens, and, of course, Eagles, Cardinals. And Ray Didinger returns from delivering his bulletin paper route to talk birds, playoffs, and the Hall of Fame. That's all next on an action-packed edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Week 17 edition of This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford. Thank you very much for joining me, Pat Callahan here, as we get you ready for Week 17 in the National Football League, a week that is rife with playoff implications. All but one, really, of the 16 games played this week have playoff implications, meaning one of the teams playing is still in the hunt. So that makes for some terrific viewing. And those of you who have Red Zone or the equivalent you'll get to see a ton of football this weekend with some serious implications. That includes the game here Sunday, Philadelphia hosting Arizona, the Eagles sitting at 11-4, and a lot of talk about this team after, again, a way too close performance against the New York Giants. I certainly thought this was going to be a blowout game. I thought it was a get-well game for the Eagles, and they did. They won the game. That's what you're supposed to do. Herm Edwards said it. You play to win the game. And the Eagles did that, but just way too close. It came down to a pass in the end zone at the end of the game. But Philadelphia holds on to win the game against the Giants. And now they host Arizona. And then next week back up to the Meadowlands to face the Giants again. We have Sal Paolantonio joining us in just a few minutes. A ton of things to talk about with Mr. Paolantonio, of course, is the host of the NFL Matchup Show. And he's a very, very busy man this weekend, including manning the radio booth for a key AFC game, the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Miami Dolphins. That's a great get for Sal, doing the analysis on that game. Ravens looked awful good Monday night against the hated 49ers. So the Ravens, if Lamar keeps that up, and he keeps that level of play up into January, they are going to be a very tough out in the AFC. The NFC, I was just chatting with Sal, and this is shocking to me, but the ESPN has a wonderful thing called the playoff machine. I would urge everybody to go play around with it. You can basically pick winners and losers over the last 2 weeks, and it will tell you what the playoff results are. And if the Eagles and Lions and 49ers all win out, the Lions are going to be the 2 seed. At least that's if I did that right. Now, I know I'm an old guy. But it looks to me that the Lions then become the 2 seed. It must be way down the tiebreaker list because the Eagles and Lions both have a 7-3 conference record right now, and they both finished the season in the conference. We'll get into that, of course, further. Xander, if you would, bring up the playoff screen right now. This is where everything stands right now, ladies and gentlemen, going into the Browns hosting the Jets to start the weekend. Baltimore, as I said, very impressive over San Francisco. San Francisco maintains the 1 seed on the strength of that win over Philadelphia. And the rest of the seeds, Miami the 2, but Buffalo is coming on strong. The Bills are now just behind the Dolphins, and the Bills still have a very good shot at that playoff, about the division championship if Buffalo wins out. So that's still a close race in the AFC. Miami, as I said, big game at Baltimore this week. Miami could lose their last 2 games and really end up the 5 or 6 seed. Kansas City not looking good at all. Kansas City loses to the Raiders last week in a game in which Aiden O'Connell, the Raiders quarterback, failed to complete a pass in quarters 2, 3, and 4. Now, that is unbelievable that the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes would lose a game in which the opposing quarterback didn't complete a pass in the last 45 minutes of the game, and yet they managed to do it. 2 defensive touchdowns for the Raiders. So the AFC looks to me like it's Baltimore's to lose, quite frankly. I don't see anybody seriously challenging them. The biggest challenge they get might come from Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. In the NFC, San Francisco looked very, very human Monday night against that tough Ravens team. You got to give John Harbaugh just tons of credit. That team is ready to play every week, every month, every year. Harbaugh, a terrific coach in Baltimore. So the San Francisco took a little bit of a dose of humble, little big slab of humble pie there for Christmas on Christmas night. And it was great to see. So the Eagles still with a shot at that 1 seed. Not easy. San Francisco finishes with games against at Washington and then home against the Rams, which may turn out to be a huge game to end the NFL season, week number 18. Detroit sits at that 3 seed right now. Detroit finishes with not two division games. They got Dallas Saturday night. That's a big, big game in the NFC. Huge game there. We talked to Sal Pao about that one. And then it's Detroit finishes with Minnesota. So a convoluted still. You see that there on the screen in the hunt. Minnesota, Green Bay still very much in the hunt. Atlanta's still hanging around even. So a great run, a finishing run here in these last 2 weeks. First, bring up that other screen, Xander. Of those 4 teams, we've been following them now week after week, the teams that have been vying for that 1 seed. And you can see here, San Francisco, as I told you, at Commanders, home to the Rams. It's hard to believe 49ers would not go 2-0 there. But the Rams are playing very well, but they haven't beaten San Francisco in the last 9 attempts during the regular season. Cowboys got the Lions, and then they are at the Commanders. So the Commanders, who are just totally, in my opinion, dysfunctional and have just switched quarterbacks, will have a lot to say about the seeding, playoff seeding in the NFC. Eagles, Cardinals, and Giants, they got to go 2-0. They have got to go 2-0. I cannot conceive of the Eagles losing either one of those games. But they've been, as I said, and you've been watching it, they've been keeping them way too close. And Detroit's got the Cowboys and Vikings. So a lot to get sorted out in the next couple of weeks. And what better man to sort them out than, of course, this gentleman, one of the busiest men in the National Football League, and that's Sal Paolantonio, the host of the NFL Matchup Show. Sal, how you doing? All right. Somebody's not mic'd. Sal, you got your mic on? Are you muted?
We got it. We're there on my angle. Yep.
Got you now.
Got you guys. All right.
Thank
good.
you very much.
Yeah, I got
so
it finally. All right, so I had a Merry Christmas. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. We got a busy final 2 weeks of the NFL season.
Yep. You certainly do, Sal. You certainly have a busy final. At least this week you're going to be.
This week's a big week for sure. Especially, I'm just studying this Eagles team, Pat,
right?
And the final 2 games. It's incumbent upon any team at the end of the season to figure out what they have to do to get ready for the postseason. Now, let's remind people of a couple of things. First of all, Kansas City lost at home. The Super Bowl champs lost at home on Christmas Day. The San Francisco 49ers, the number 1 seed in the NFC, lost at home. The Eagles survived and won a football game at home. That's the important distinction for people to realize. They did not play their best football, yet they survived. Also, draw the contrast or draw the comparison to 2017 in the month of December when they won the Super Bowl. After switching from Carson Wentz, who got hurt, blew out his knee in L.A.,
right,
to Nick Foles. They were playing horrible football. They were underdogs going into the playoffs. This Eagles team is not in a dissimilar situation, but they do have their starting quarterback. I get it, but they've had so many changes on the coaching staff and so many injuries, especially in the secondary. No team with a winning record has had more injuries to their secondary than the Philadelphia Eagles. You got guys playing in the secondary who weren't on the team in October, in November.
Yeah.
And so you have a coach who's just stepped in. I mean, it is really a testament to their resilience. Now, do I like some of the stuff that I'm hearing out of NovaCare? No, I do not. I would like to see them do things with a little bit more joy. They are in a very good spot, all things considered.
Right.
It's super hard to get back to the Super Bowl. Everybody knows that. For a coach and quarterback that has lost their debut in the Super Bowl to go back and win it ever. It's only happened once. Happened in 1970 with Hank Stram and Len Dawson. We're going 53 years ago, Pat. You and I remember that. Xander doesn't remember that.
That's certainly
Sean
true.
Green doesn't remember that. He'll remember that. Ray Didinger, when he's on later, he'll remember that. But, I mean, it's happened once, Pat. So this is a super hard thing for them to do, especially considering the secondary reconfiguration constantly this week. I would say people just relax, and I would say that to the Eagles too. I didn't like what I heard from Devontae Smith. You know, I'm not happy. I didn't like what I heard from A.J. Brown. I don't want to talk after the game. I have nothing nice to say. Listen, you won on Christmas Day when the Chiefs and the Niners lost. Be happy about the win and figure out what you have to do better. And so there are two things in my view that they have to do better.
All right.
Number one thing, and I know we talked about this earlier today, and I sent you this notes. They have to be better and more creative on third down defense. Their third down defense is struggling compared to last year. Last year, their sack rate was number one on third down, 18%. This year, their sack rate is 6.7% on third down. That's second to last in the league. That's 31st in the league. You have a new defensive coordinator who's not blitzing.
There you go.
He's not blitzing on third down specifically. Matt Patricia only blitzed Drew Lock 8% of the time in Seattle.
Right.
Now, obviously, I think, and Sean Desai wasn't blitzing either. Overall, this year, they're blitzing about 20% of the time. Now, I'm not saying you blitz like Buddy Ryan. We're not looking for the 46 defense. But you need to be as creative as you possibly can to get pressure. And not just play safe because you're afraid your secondary is going to give up the big play. They have given up the big play, and they haven't been reliable. But they need to be better on third down, more creative. And on offense, and this is going to drive all the cognoscente crazy, this team needs to run the ball on first and second down. Pat, the Eagles rank 4th in the NFL in success rate when they run it on the early downs. The film study shows it. The analytics show it. One would assume that when you're that good at something, you'd major in it, but they don't. They drop back to pass at an above average rate on first and second down.
Right.
Those empty plays put them behind the chains, behind the sticks, and force Jalen Hurts into turnovers that he wasn't producing last year. Right. It's had a trickle-down cascading effect.
Okay.
They're not a good running team, Pat. Pat, they're a great running team, and they're a great running team on first and second down. So I'm with the fans at Lincoln Financial Field chanting "run the ball." Now, I would like them to calm down so that they're not drowning out Jalen Hurts' cadence, and that's up to Jalen to get them to calm down when they're at the line of scrimmage. But I'm with the fan. The Philly fans are smart. They understand what's going on with their football team. They're a great running team. They need to run the ball on first and second down, take the pressure off Jalen Hurts, who's only really throwing to 3 players right now. He's throwing to Smith and Brown and Goddard, and basically that's it.
Right.
So they got to do better on third down on defense and better on first and second down on offense.
All right, Sal, when we get back, I want to flesh out that run comment that you're making, the whole theory you have about running the ball. And
Pat, it's not a theory, Pat. The numbers are there. The analytics are there. The film study shows it. They are an excellent running team on first and second down.
So I want to flesh out, though, why they're not doing it. And I also want to talk about Mr. Hurts and what he has to do, if anything, in your opinion, to maybe what alterations he might have to make. And then I want to look around the league with you, especially that game you're covering Sunday, Dolphins and the Ravens. We're going to do all of that next with Sal Paolantonio on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Celebrate your victories in style at Spring Mill Country Club. From Eagles wins to baby showers, weddings to birthdays, our picturesque venue is ready to host your special events. Make memories that last a lifetime in our stunning surroundings. Call Spring Mill today at 215 215-675-6000 and elevate your next event to unforgettable heights. Contact us now to book 215-675-6000.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Back this week in pro football. Pat Callahan here, joined by the best in the business. That will be Sal Paolantonio from ESPN. Sal, I want to augment that discussion now that you just started relative to running the ball. You were kind enough to send me some notes in which included is this, that Jalen Hurts has the fourth most difficult set of what are called early down throws in the whole league. Now, can you...
Pat, that's unbelievable. And who are the other three quarterbacks? They're Bryce Young. They're the guy from Oakland, from the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, right?
O'Connell, right?
Right. And who was the third one? It was Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, the Commanders, yeah.
So, Pat, that is not a group of quarterbacks you want Jalen Hurts lumped in with. Please repeat that to your audience because, Pat, that is the key. That's the key metric here. Repeat it again, please.
He has the fourth most difficult set of what are called early down throws in the entire league, meaning that the Eagles are choosing plays for him to throw the ball on first and second down that are the most difficult to complete by whatever metric there is.
All right, and now, so think about that for a second. So let's parse the sentence that you just said. The Eagles are choosing throws.
Right.
Now, we don't know that to be true. It could be, and we've heard Nick Sirianni say a couple of times in the last two pressers, Jalen has autonomy at the line of scrimmage. We've heard that, right? So we can safely assume that it's not all on Brian Johnson in his design or play calling, or Nick Sirianni or Jeff Stoutland, who has a hand in this, that some of this is because Jalen Hurts is getting out of runs on first and second down and choosing these difficult throws, which is clear if you watch people break down the Eagles offense like Brian Baldinger does a good job of it. Go on Brian Baldinger's X account and look at how he specifically breaks down the passing game on early downs. And Jalen has throws underneath that he's not throwing that are available to him. So there's a lot going on here. And it shouldn't be happening as we go into week 17 with 2 weeks to go, but it is. Yep. And it's okay that it is. So you have to fix it. Yep. He has the fourth most difficult early down throws in the NFL. And the other three quarterbacks are Bryce Young, Sam Howell, and the young man from the Las Vegas Raiders. So, I mean, you don't want to be in that category with those quarterbacks.
Right. That's not company you want to be in. But
no, especially if you have Super Bowl aspirations, which the Eagles do. So they got to fix that. And the one way to fix it is to do what they do well on first and second down.
Sal, look, the brotherly shove, I know it's a very unique play, Sal, but it's a play in which the offensive line fires off and basically just pushes the entire defensive line back. They're so skilled at it. If the Eagles would run more, Sal, out of the I formation, they never run out of the I formation. And if they would do that, Sal, wouldn't it by definition limit Hurts' ability to change the play to a pass?
Well, why do you think they had pistol formations last week against the Giants? You know, Sirianni was asked about that after the game. Why you got pistol formations? Well, there's your answer, Pat. You're a smart guy. You know your football. By the way, I checked out ESPN stats and information, and as always, you are correct, sir. The Lions would get the NFC's number 2 seed ahead of the Eagles if both teams went out, because the Lions would have the better record against common opponents.
How about that, Sal? Oh, boy.
Wow.
That's hard to believe.
But you know what, Pat? I'm looking at this playoff machine, which I just discovered because you told me about it, and I'm on ESPN, but I should obviously be involved in it a little bit more. But if they get the 2 seed,
right, Seattle
could come in, and I don't like the Eagles matchup against Seattle. I never have. I don't like it. Pete Carroll's 20 and forever against the Eagles.
Yeah.
But if if they get the 3 seed, your beloved Los Angeles Rams come into Philadelphia, Pat. Yeah. Now that'd be called the Pat Callahan Bowl, right there.
That would be the Callahan Bowl, and I know that you'd want to sit right next to me, Sal, so that when the objects start getting thrown, I know you want to be standing.
I will clearly buy you a ticket.
Oh, I'm
sure.
with you. All right.
But we'll get you in a suite, so you'll be somewhat protected.
Thank you.
But you will not be able to wear a jersey for sure.
No jersey.
That.
Come on. I'm 65 years. No more jerseys. That's it. We're done with it.
If you want to be at home, I will petition the powers that be to watch the game with a camera at the Callahan house.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. All right, no sound. You can have the camera, but you better not have any sound. Hey, Sal,
cutaways. We'll call it cutaways to Callahan. That's what we'll call it.
A word about Jalen Hurts. It's something you and I have had a dialogue on all season, Sal. Now, if you look at his stats, Sal, now I know stats don't tell the whole story, but his 2023 stats, he's 65. I'm comparing 15 weeks of 23 to all of 22. 65.5% completion. Last year, 66.5. 242 yards per game. Last year, 246. 20 touchdowns this year, 22 last year. 34 sacks this year, 38 last year. They're almost identical. What is it about Hurts' game this year which has so many Eagle fans either puzzled or concerned about his level or style of play?
You know, Pat, I think it was just the pre-Christmas 3-game losing streak that put people into a funk.
Right.
People anticipated the San Francisco game would be tough, but they didn't expect to get boat raced at Lincoln Financial Field. Okay.
Right.
They thought they would beat Seattle. They had it on their racket and they blew it.
Right.
So those were the 2 shockers for sure.
Right.
Those were the 2 shockers.
Yeah.
Right. We all knew that it would be tough, but they didn't realize it would be this tough. And the other thing is, there's just no esprit de corps.
There you go.
Right now,
Right.
And that is because even Nick Sirianni mentioned it. He said it. I need to be less tense on the sideline.
Right.
The whole incident with the security guard, Dom DeSandro, left a bad taste in people's mouth about what's going on the sideline.
Right.
You have Hassan Reddick yelling at coaches.
Exactly.
And then you have Jalen Hurts saying at the press conferences, I'm not happy. We're striving for something better. You need the number one thing that people want out of sports and out about their teams is they want you to bring joy to the arena. And it's incumbent upon the leaders of the team, no matter how much the team is struggling, to understand the context of the season. And the context of the season and this football team is they are a talented team. They have one of the best wide receivers in the league, one of the best running backs in the league, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Their head coach has a great record in his first 3 seasons. They have talented players and a talented coaching staff. They hit a skid. They made some big mistakes. They got to get it right. And I would just implore people to remember this. The Kansas City Chiefs, you got Andy Reid bumping Travis Kelce on the sideline.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs lost
to
Las Vegas.
Yeah, I know.
And San Francisco coughed it up 5 times to Baltimore. And Patrick Queen, their linebacker, in the bowels of the stadium in Santa Clara after the game is saying these words. A lot of teams want to play basketball on grass. We're not about that. We're going to hit you in the mouth.
Right.
He said that in their own stadium.
Right. Very interesting. Yeah.
Pat, so put it all into perspective, okay? Do the Eagles have stuff to fix? Yes. Is it fixable? Absolutely, it is fixable. I think it, without a doubt, is fixable. They're double-digit favorites against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I don't think the Cardinals are going to give them any problem whatsoever. However, I think Tyrod Taylor and the Giants, the last game of the year, that will be a very difficult game.
Yeah. I think that, and I have said it, I said it about the Giants game. It didn't happen. If the Eagles could affect a blowout of the Cardinals, I think, Sal, psychologically, it would fix a lot of problems. I think the entire team would exhale.
They don't need a blowout, Pat. They just don't need to turn the ball over. Right. And they need to do what they are capable of doing.
Right.
And I really want to see, listen, I want to see, and I know this defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia. I have studied him. I've written about him in my books. I know him very well. I want to see his blitzes on third down. I want to see the pressure packages and his creativity on third down against Arizona and against Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray, right. Okay. All right, Sal, we got 2 minutes left. Let me let's look around the league here. We got 2-minute warning here. Give me your thoughts on
Pat, we could do this for 3 hours, Pat.
I know. Lions Cowboys Saturday night. Big game. Obviously, we just got done talking about why. Dallas coming off 2 losses, Sal. They looked terrible against Buffalo.
Lions are going to lose Saturday night. Dallas is going to beat them Saturday night.
All right. Because I'm not sold. Jared Goff he's a dome quarterback, Sal, but he's only one particular dome quarterback, and that is Detroit. I don't have much confidence in Detroit's ability to get down there and win that game. And then Sunday, Sal, you are covering a huge game in the AFC. Miami goes to Baltimore. Miami, Sal, finishes up at Baltimore and then Buffalo. That is a tough finishing stretch for the Dolphins. How do you see that game Sunday?
Well, I think the Miami Dolphins are in trouble. Looks like they're not going to have Jalen Waddle to go along with Tyreek Hill. Looks like Adam Schefter is reporting that Waddle is not going to play in the game on Sunday against Baltimore. And what Adam Schefter reports is locked solid. So they've got problems. Lamar Jackson is 9-0 at home in the month of December in his career. 9-0.
All right.
So that's pretty significant. That's pretty significant. Yeah. So they're playing at a very high level defensively. But Pat, this game is the modern NFL. This game, the modern part 2. Part 1 was Monday night in San Francisco, because the Niners are the second highest offensive motion team in the NFL. The number 1 pre-snap motion team in the NFL is the Miami Dolphins. Right. And the number 1 post-snap motion on defense in the NFL is Mike McDonald's defense in Baltimore. And that Baltimore defense looks a lot like son of Rex Ryan, which Rex Ryan was son of Buddy Ryan.
Yeah.
When Mike McDonald took over, I would imagine that Mike McDonald went down into one winning drive there in Owings Mills, Maryland, and said, "Get me to the Rex Ryan vault. Right. Let me see what Rex Ryan did." Right. And instead of having 1 inside linebacker in Ray Lewis, he's got 2 in Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith. And how in the world the Ravens got Roquan Smith from the Chicago Bears? I don't know. You watch Roquan Smith. I mean, he is a grizzly bear on roller skates, man. That guy is insanely good.
I know. All right, and Sal, one last thing. Congratulations to you. I know you've been leading the charge. Eric Allen makes it to the Hall of Fame finalist list. I think that's terrific. And
it was a real team effort. Paul Domowitch, Old Daily News columnist, is leading the charge. I'm helping him. Reuben Frank did a great job. John Ganoda, the Eagles PR department, did a great job. We all made phone calls. We all put out leaflets. Frank Cooney out in It's California because Eric Allen finished his career with the Old Oakland Raiders.
Right.
He's helping us. Pat, it's tough. You know, he is 18th year eligible. 18. And we finally got him into the room. The meeting is January 19th. We got 20 days. Everybody get out on social media on Eric Allen. Just push it. You're gonna have Ray Didinger. Ray Didinger is the godfather of the NFL Hall of Fame. He's the one that got Tommy McDonald in.
Right.
And Ray will talk to you about how tough it is to get from 15 to 5. It's hard. Right. So everybody get on social media for Eric Allen. Push.
All right. Well done by you, and I appreciate you taking all this time. I held you late, but I do appreciate it very much. And I hope you're popping a lot of B12 there, Sal. You got a busy weekend, and Happy New Year to you.
Hey, Pat, I don't give away my secrets. Blueberries, Pat. A lot of blueberries and pasta. That's what I do.
Very good, pal. Appreciate it very much, Sal. Safe travel, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks again. All right. The great Sal Paolantonio joining me now. We got another great one coming up now, and that would be the erstwhile Sean Green. A lot to digest from Sal. We'll do that. We're going to talk to Sean about Jalen Hurts and about some key games and where his take is as we hurtle towards the end of the NFL season. We'll do that all next here on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
I got everything you need.
Anything can happen when you go live.
I got everything you need. There's no trouble, don't need a thing. Snap your fingers and I'm on the scene. Don't need a thing. Snap your fingers and I'm on the scene.
Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia, voted best casino in Pennsylvania.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. But that's not all. They are excited to join forces with another pillar of the community banking world in eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank. Their team of professionals will fit seamlessly into First Bank's culture of dedication and understanding your financial aspirations to fuel your success. With a deep-rooted commitment to eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank stands as a testament to community values and unwavering support. Experience the difference of real relationships and dedicated personal bankers. Connect with any member of the team today at our Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or you can call them directly at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC. At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@WhisPearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@WhisPearl.com.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Football, presented by Kennedy Ford, and this gentleman here, who was he was really the person on who the HBO series Entourage was based. That would be the great Sean Green. Sean, presented by Live Hotel and Casino. Sean, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And we do a show for VSiN, and one of the guys who calls in a bunch is Doug Ellen, the guy who created Entourage. So next time I talk to him, I'll have to throw that at him, that people think I'm maybe I'm the turtle character. I don't know.
You are the original Adrian Grenier. Whatever happened to him, by the way? Handsome guy like that was a hit series, yet he never parlayed that, to use the parlance, into any type of a notable film career, did he?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I think it's because he played a movie star that people were afraid to cast him as an actual movie star. I think that's something that messed his mojo up there.
About that. All right. Well, listen, Sean, thank you very much for taking the time tonight. I want to start with this. You may have heard the end of that dialogue I had with Sal Paolantonio, where I compared Jalen Hurts' 23 stats to those of his 22 stats. Now, you've watched every minute and probably a ton of tape of the Eagles this year. The stats say there is virtually no difference between the way Hurts has played this year and last year. And yet there just appears to be something that nags at people about, is it his decision-making? Is it his playing in crunch time? Do you think there's any discernible difference between the Hurts of last year and the Hurts of this year?
Yeah, I mean, a slight difference. Eye test will say he's maybe a little tentative at times. But I think a lot of it is just expectations, right? I mean, last year they came in with not super high expectations. There was a lot of talk, and Sal, I'm sure, was reporting all over him. Hey, Eagles are kind of in the Deshaun Watson mix. They're in the Russell Wilson mix. Didn't know if Jalen Hurts was the guy. And then he comes, has this near MVP season, kind of surprising people, playing with some reckless abandon at times, and really exceeded expectations. So now this year, the expectations, because they went to the Super Bowl, are sky high, and it's been tough for him to match it. So I do think part of it is an expectations thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a little hesitation here or there, and he was very fortunate as far as like turnovers and stuff like that. And some of that just, there's been a lot of bad bounces for this Eagles team and for Jalen Hurts. I mean, that pick 60 through, that was a good ball. Dallas Goedert slips and falls. I don't know whose fault that is. There's just a general pervasive sloppiness that's around this team. To me, it felt like they're in cruise control the entire regular season, like just get to the playoffs, because then they feel like, okay, this is where we were at. Let's try and do it again. And I think that's what people are responding to.
I think, Sean, that they're the most, I said in my opening, that they're the most dissected, analyzed 11-4 team in NFL history. But I think what the Eagles need now, Sal was indifferent to this theory that I posted here. What's your take? I think the Eagles just need a blowout. They didn't get it last week against the Giants.
Yeah,
and all they did was they won the game, but it seemed to create as many questions as it did answers. If they could just manufacture a 37-10 win over Arizona, I think there would just be a notable exhale in that Eagle locker room. You agree?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my blood pressure would certainly agree, because nothing comes easy for this team, right? And you can say that on a micro level, like nothing comes easy in the offense and nothing comes easy for this team overall. They're still winning because they have superior talent, but it's not like there's a ton of easy stuff to be found offensively or defensively. So if there is an easy game, if there is a bunch of celebrations, some touchdown celebrations, AJ Brown wanting to talk to reporters after the game, if you talk to guys in the locker room, it was like they lost by 20 points on Christmas instead of winning by 8 points. So I think you're right. I think something like that needs the energy needs a shift. For this, my wife would suggest maybe saging the locker room, but I don't think they're going to go for that. I think a blowout is probably the closest thing you can get.
And Sal did mention demeanor, Sean. He mentioned how Nick Sirianni, he's just way too combustible on that sideline, and I think he's got to calm down. And I think Hurts needs to be a little more positive. Sal's right about that, and I think that could go a long way. But let's get down to the numbers. People aren't here. I guess they want to hear what Sean Green has to say about the numbers. So let's do that. Eagles, a huge favorite here against Sean. I think it's, what is it, 13, 12 and a half, something like that now?
Yeah, it's floating around 11 right now. But yeah, there's 11 to 12. It's not a huge difference.
You're going to stay there, and whose side are you coming down on?
Yeah, it's tough to say the Eagles are going to beat anyone by double digits right now, but if they are, it's going to be this Cardinals team at home. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of DeAndre Swift, get back to that play action that was working so well for them earlier in the season. And, you talk about easy wins. The few easy wins they've had were early in the season when they were really getting DeAndre Swift going in a big way. I thought he played a pretty good game, DeAndre Swift, last week against the Giants.
I did too.
And you have this Arizona team going outdoors, back-to-back road spot. I mean, the Bears beat them by double digits. I think the Eagles should be able to do that as well. But again, there is a tightness around this team. So I think they got to get out to that early lead if they're looking to get this covered. So yeah, I'll lay the points. I mean, this is a back-to-back spot for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray is dealing with an illness. That's never a good sign. And I just, dome team outdoors in December, not needing it. It's tough to really talk yourself into the Cardinals.
That's fine. I agree with that. Let me backtrack now to Saturday, Sean. Big game in the NFC. Detroit, which is currently the 3 seed, host on the road in Dallas to face a team. You talk about being a home team. The Dallas Cowboys are just two different organizations between playing in Dallas and playing outside of Dallas. This time they get to Detroit at home. I'm very skeptical, Sean, about Jared Goff and the Lions' ability to compete and play hard on the road. How do you see this game?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think this could come right down to the number. This is interesting because the look-ahead line was like 3.5, and yet the Cowboys lost and the Lions won, and then the spread went up. Yeah. So that's kind of a telltale sign of something fishy might be happening. I think a lot of people are on the angle of like, hey, this is a get-right spot for the Cowboys at home. They match up very well against this Lions team. So maybe I'm overthinking this one, but my contrarian gambling brain is saying maybe take the Lions and the points. They're still in the mix for the 1 seed. They're still in the mix for the 2 seed. If both they and the Eagles went out, they would actually have the 2 seed over the Eagles. So Eagles fans maybe actually rooting for the Cowboys. I know that's tough to swallow. I think you're actually getting like 1.5 to 2 points free here with the Lions. I normally like to fade teams like the Lions who are, emotional, crying after that game. But now they're kind of playing with the house money. They got nothing to lose. Only slipped the game. Dan Campbell, revenge game against his former organization. And you want to talk about getting tight. This Cowboys team might get a little tight after losing back-to-back games.
That's fair. But wouldn't that the movement in the line from the look-ahead number to where it is now, which is like 6, isn't that the public laying money on the star, just figuring that the Cowboys are coming back home? So and isn't public money predisposed to bet Dallas anyway, Sean?
Yeah, in general. And so that's why you usually have that a little bit of an inflated price. I would just say that the sharps grab that Detroit Lions at 6, and that's why it's going down a little bit. So again, I think if you can get the 6 with the Lions, that might not be a horrible way to play it. But I feel better about a lot of other bets than the Lions for sure.
How do you feel about this game? Sal Pao is covering this game, and it is a big one, that being Miami traveling to Baltimore. Baltimore right now, 3.5. I'm a little surprised, Sean, that the number is that low, given the fact that's a home field number for the Ravens, who just dusted the 49ers on the road. Are you surprised that's not a bigger number, maybe a point and a half higher for Baltimore?
Yeah, well, I think Sal nailed it. Like Lamar Jackson in December is a really tough out, and the physicality this Ravens defense brings. Now, Miami, look at what they've done on the road against good teams. They couldn't get it done against Buffalo, couldn't get it done against the Eagles, struggled in a neutral field game overseas against the Chiefs. And if you can stop their running game, it really clogs things up. I know Tyreek Hill is back, but it looks like Jalen Waddle will be out. I'm with you. It's certainly a letdown spot for the Ravens, but Ravens can essentially lock up the number 1 seed at home, lock up the MVP for Lamar Jackson if they get this win. So I think you got to take the Ravens here. If it was a team other than the Dolphins, you might be able to talk me into it. And Dolphins know that, hey, their chances of getting the number 1 seed pretty slim, but really, their playoff stuff comes down to winning the AFC East, which they can do next week against the Bills.
I love Baltimore here, Sean. I'm not a gambler, but I love the Ravens here. All the psychology to me points to the Ravens because I don't think John Harbaugh allows teams to have letdowns. This guy's just been a terrific coach, and that's a Ravens team that is just never not prepared to play. You know what I mean? Like you almost rarely do you ever hear yourself saying on a Monday, "Boy, the Ravens really didn't show up for that game." He just doesn't allow it. And
and if you look at the advanced stuff like DVOA, I mean, this Ravens team is historically good. Now they do have 3 losses, but you look at their losses. I mean, they had fourth quarter leads in all those games in kind of wonky ways. They ended up losing the game. So I'm with you. 3 feels like a gift.
Yeah. Of course, the Ravens almost lost to the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great game.
It was. And boy, that NFC, I don't know, Sean, I'll have to ask you next week. I wonder I guess you can bet on which teams are going to make those 6 and 7 seeds in the NFC.
Well, usually they have like make or miss playoffs. They might not have seeds for 6 and 7.
Okay. It's just make or miss. But there are so many combinations between the Rams, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Packers. Atlanta's still alive, but I think it's those 4 teams are going to decide those last 2 spots. You have a look ahead yourself that based upon who they're playing. Who do you see filling those 6 and 7 slots in the NFC?
Yeah, I mean, I still think this Rams team is a playoff team. I know they got to go to the East Coast against this Giants team, but I don't see the Giants slowing down this passing game. Matty Stafford and the Rams. I mean, you saw what Devonta Smith did to the Giants. Hurts, who's not usually a huge passing yards guy, threw for 300. I think they're going to have their hands full covering Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. They're even getting Robinson involved in the passing game. So I was higher than market on the Rams. Preseason, maybe a little too high with some of the predictions, but I think they're a playoff team, and I think this win over the Giants will certainly go a long way towards that.
Well, it does. If one of Seattle, if Seattle stumbles against Pittsburgh, and then depending upon that Green Bay Minnesota game, it's going to be a fight to the finish down there for those 6 and 7 seeds, and that will impact the Eagles as to who's going to come there, assuming the Eagles hold serve and get that 2 seed. Sal Paolantonio was speculating, and it'll be enjoyable talking to you next week about it. What teams the Eagles really would not want to see coming to Philadelphia? And because there's that to me, Sean, Green Bay, Minnesota, the Eagles to beat them, I think with minimal fanfare. I think Seattle and Los Angeles present problems for the Eagles, much more so than those other teams.
Yeah, and certainly the Seattle would be a revenge game for the Eagles. Geno Smith on the road, not quite as good as Geno Smith at home, although obviously he didn't play in that game. And then, I don't think anyone wants to see this Rams team in the playoffs right now. They beat them in L.A., but Eagles were playing better, and I felt like the Rams offense wasn't quite as dialed in. I mean, the Eagles secondary has been rough. So a veteran quarterback like Matt Stafford coming in with those receivers.
Stafford is reborn. He's rebirthed himself, and it's impressive. All right, Sean Green, where does everybody find you this weekend? It's a big weekend, a lot of fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Where does everybody find Sean Green and his posse?
Yeah, just Google Sports Gambling Podcast. Can't miss us. We're doing a big New Year's Eve live stream Sunday afternoon with some of the early games and late games. Big party there, 12:30 Pacific, youtube.com/Sports Gambling Podcast. But Happy New Year. And just Google Sports Gambling Podcast. Can't miss us.
Sean Green, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you too. And we'll talk to you again next week. All right.
All right. Take it easy, Pat.
The great Sean Green, presented by Live Hotel and Casino. When we get back, I got a few minutes. I just want to look at that Week 17 schedule. Talk about the playoff implications. They're all over the place. And then it'll be Ray Didinger joining me to talk about the Eagles and where they stand and the playoffs and the Hall of Fame 15 finalists. We're going to all that still to come on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
I got everything you need.
Anything can happen when you go live.
I got everything you need. There's no trouble, don't need a thing. Snap your fingers and I'm on the scene.
Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia, voted best casino in Pennsylvania.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Actually, this week, a few minutes before we did talk about the Eagles and the Cardinals and the finish to this very, very interesting NFL season. The high cost of Russell Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, you probably saw the news this week that the Denver Broncos basically told Russell Wilson, either you restructure your contract. Actually, they told him this a couple months ago. Either you restructure that contract or we're going to sit you down. And ultimately, he refused to do it. And that was his purview. He just signed a contract with Denver last year. The Broncos made a terrible trade to acquire Russell Wilson. That's not Russell Wilson's fault, right? The Broncos did it. The Broncos received Russell Wilson at a fourth-round draft pick in the 2022 draft, and they gave up Drew Lock, Noah Fant, both starting for Lock has started for Seattle, and he was the guy who helped beat the Eagles. Noah Fant, the tight end, Shelby Harris. They also gave up a 2022 first-round pick, which turned into Charles Cross, the Seahawks offensive tackle. 2022 second-round pick, which is Boye Mafe, who had two sacks and 4 quarterback hits in the win over Tennessee. 2022 fifth-round pick, which was linebacker Tyreek Smith, and then a first and a second in 2023, one of which is Devin Witherspoon, who's one of the top rookies in the year. He plays quarterback. Denver got completely fleeced in the deal, and now they're staring at massive cap hits if they cut Wilson, which they're going to do. And it just goes to show you, in the NFL, the quarterback money is unbelievable, but you better not be wrong. You better not be wrong. And the Denver Broncos were. Wilson clearly is not the guy that he was in Denver, that he was in Seattle. The Broncos are finding that out the hard way. Xander, if you want to bring up that, let's take a quick look at that Week 17 schedule. Because, as I said, only one game, and that would be the Chargers and the Broncos, really doesn't have any playoff implications. The rest of them do, which is really fascinating and great if you're a red zone viewer. Jets and Browns. Now, the Browns the Browns are one of 7 teams. The Bills, Browns, Chiefs, and Jaguars in the AFC can clinch a playoff berth this week. And the Seahawks, Rams, and Bucks can clinch a playoff spot in the NFC. And that's not necessarily even by winning. Some of them can back in based on what else happens. But some very, very big games this week. The Rams and Giants, both Sal and Sean Green were talking about that game. That's a big game for playoff positioning. So too Pittsburgh, Seattle. Pittsburgh won last week, and they're still in the dance. And Seattle very much involved after that win over the Eagles and the win in Tennessee. Kansas City hoping to bounce back against a Cincinnati team that has a very, very slight chance. We've talked at length about Detroit and Dallas. Buffalo is still playing very strong right now. They're going to dust New England, of course. But some other the other interesting games, I think, the Falcons and the Bears. Bears playing much better right now. Falcons still with an outside shot. And, of course, the Sunday night game, massive playoff implications, Green Bay and Minnesota. I think the loser of that game is going to be out. So that's a huge game for Green Bay. Green Bay cannot afford to lose that game. They've got to win it. Minnesota changing quarterbacks again after Nick Mullins' 4-interception performance last week and Minnesota's loss. So a very interesting schedule. Don't forget, it's a Saturday night game, no Monday night game. The Monday night game basically is being played Saturday night, Detroit at Dallas. All right, that's just a quick look at that schedule. When we get back, it'll be Ray Didinger joining me, the Hall of Famer, a longtime member of the Hall of Fame selection committee. We're going to talk about that and Eric Allen's candidacy as the numbers get from 15 to 5, and also get Ray's always excellent take on where the Eagles stand as they head into what we hope is a deep playoff run. We're going to do all of that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Welcome to Park Bank, a return to better banking. With 7 convenient locations covering Philadelphia and South Jersey, you can now earn more with Park Bank's premier money market account, offering depositors 5% APY on balances under $50,000 and 5.35% APY on balances $50,000 and above. Take advantage of this limited time offer. APY equals annual percentage yield. The minimum deposit required to open the account is $1,000. No service charges are imposed, provided you maintain a daily minimum balance of $1,000. Fees may reduce earnings. The quoted APYs are accurate as of October 10, 2023 and are subject to change at any time. For more information, go to parkbank.com. That's parkbank.com. Member FDIC.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
Welcome back. This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you here, Week 17 in the National Football League here on JAKIB Sports. Don't forget, give me a follow on X at TWIPFPat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. And all of you know this man, who I'm proud to have back on the show. That's a Hall of Famer himself and a longtime member of the Hall of Fame Committee, the author of Finished Business and the Eagles Encyclopedia. That's Ray Didinger. Ray, how are you today?
Hello, Pat. How are you doing?
All right. Thank you very much for joining me, Ray. I can't stress enough to everybody to go buy that book, Finished Business. It's really a wonderful read throughout Ray's career, and so many interesting moments and stories you have to tell way back in the days of the Bolton and the Inquirer. The Daily News, and of course your Comcast days. But I guess that was a labor of love doing that book, huh?
Oh yeah, it was. It really was. It probably would have never been written, Pat, if the Eagles hadn't won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Temple University Press, who published it, had talked to me a couple years earlier about doing my memoirs because I was coming up on 50 years. And, I tried it. I sat down and I spent, a couple months doing outlines and writing sample chapters. And I just didn't feel it, and I called them back and said, I don't think it's going, I'm just not feeling it. I said, okay, no problem. But when 2017 came along and the Eagles went on and won the Super Bowl in that amazing season and that amazing game, it was actually flying back from Minneapolis that the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I think we have a book now.
Yeah, all right.
Because I had covered the 2 Flyers Stanley Cups. I had covered the 2 Phillies World Series. I had covered the Sixers run to the championship with Doc and Moses. The one thing that was missing was the big one, was the Eagles winning a Super Bowl. And when that happened, I just kind of felt like that completed the picture. That sort of represented finished business. So that's really kind of how the book came about.
So many great anecdotes in the book. I found very interesting, and I think everyone else would too. Your takes on those the great Phillies teams of the '70s that never got it done until Pete Rose showed up.
Right.
And also, I did not know I didn't remember the big story you did on pro wrestling and the fact that you could have ended up like John Stossel if not for a security guard. That's a great read too. So everybody check that out. It's a great book. All right, Ray, let me get back now to the present. Unfortunately, we have to spend time there. And I was talking with Sal Paolantonio earlier in the show, and I wanted to get your take on this. I posit to Sal that what the Eagles need is a blowout. They didn't get it last week against the Giants, but I think it could cure a lot of those locker room and sideline ills if they could just come out with a 37-10 win over Arizona. What is your take on that?
It would help. It would help. I think it would put everybody's mind at ease. Right. The coaches, the players, management, the front office, and maybe most of all the fans. I think everybody kind of needs that. Yeah. But, one of the things about this team that I find the most surprising and perhaps the most troubling is that we're 15 games in now, and we haven't yet seen them play a 60-minute game. There is a one game, and we're now very much into the home stretch of the season. Right. And we haven't had one game where you could say that for 4 quarters they went out and owned the game. Yeah. They're 11-4, which on paper looks pretty good, and it's probably going to be good enough to win the division. It's certainly going to get you to the playoffs. But it has been a very choppy, sort of lurchy kind of 11-4, where, they've had close calls against a lot of teams that they should have blown away, a really ugly loss to the Jets, and a lot of games that just kind of left you walking away saying, yeah, they won, but you're kind of scratching your head. So, if they could come out on Sunday and just bury the Cardinals, which they could, and you might say they probably should, I don't know that it would say, oh boy, everything's great now. They're right there. They're ready for the playoffs, because there still are going to be issues, regardless of what the score is on Sunday. There's still going to be things moving forward that are less than perfect with this team. But I think a nice big blowout, game's over at halftime kind of night is something that I think everybody would welcome.
Right. A few coaches have been as successful as Nick Sirianni has been out of the box. A Super Bowl appearance in just his second year, and they're poised to make, I would hope, a deep playoff run again in his third year. And yet his sideline demeanor is unique. It sometimes seems as if he's, it's like a pickup football game. The way sometimes he seems to lose his temper rather frequently, and sometimes with his own players. What does Nick Sirianni perhaps need to do different, if anything, to also help get this team out of what you just described as this season-long malaise?
Yeah, he has shown that this year. Certainly, it was certainly very much in evidence in the last game. Just some of what we saw in that final couple of minutes in the Giants game, with him clearly barking at Hassan Reddick and then barking at the linebacker coach, and then Devontae Smith,
right?
Who kind of was just walking in like the accidental tourist, and he's winding up getting chewed out. Nick was, he was very edgy there, and I kind of understand it, because I think he's feeling stressed, and I'm sure all the stuff that we've talked about the areas where, this team has not been that good this year. And nobody's going to wear that more than the head coaches, because they're the guys that are living it 24/7. And I think he feels like, this team and this season has not been what he thought it was going to be. And the other night, I think just the frustration, I don't want to say got the better of him, but the frustration, I think, was more visible to the fans and the TV audience than it had been at that point. But I think it's been I think it's been a very stressful year for everybody down there, right? Because you're coming off the Super Bowl, you're coming off a very bitter Super Bowl loss. Right. You're coming into this year with the hope and a lot of people saying this is the best team in the NFL, best roster in the NFL. Heck, I said that. And almost from week one, even though they've been winning games, they haven't shown you that. Right. What you thought they were going to be. I mean, dumb mistakes, turnovers, penalties, general sloppiness in all these games. And I think, at this point, Nick Sirianni has just had it up to here. And the other night, it just you saw it boil over in a very public kind of way.
And I think, I think that concern too is that when the playoffs, obviously the opposition gets way higher, way tougher, and there's not going to be any room to offset those kind of mistakes that you're talking about. No. Ray, just a word about Jalen Hurts. We tend maybe to overanalyze Jalen Hurts. I don't know, but I had a dialogue with Sal about the fact that his 23 stats are almost identical to his 22 stats. And yet again, it seems as though his level of play is different, is not quite as elevated as it was last year. Is there anything you think he needs to do different these last couple of weeks to get ready for a playoff run?
Well, he's clearly not where he was last year. I think that part of it is what we've all seen, which is that he's been playing with some sort of injury most of the year. Doesn't want to talk about it. Team doesn't want to talk about it, but he's been playing through something most of this year, which has affected him. But there are, he's still making some spectacular plays. I mean, that 3rd and 20 that he converted on Sunday was, every time, if you want to run that back and look at it, every time you look at it, it's an even more amazing throw that he was able to thread that needle in that spot and really kind of get this team's heart beating again. Because that game, even though the Giants are a terrible team, all of a sudden at that moment, that game was kind of teetering.
I know.
And that one play, that big play, he converts 3rd and 20 to Brown. They take it down, they score. Now all of a sudden the game's under control again. But that was a very, very big play and a very big moment, and he delivered it. He's still capable of that. But the problem is he's making a lot more mistakes than he did last year. Last year he made a lot of splash plays, both running it and throwing it. Statistically, he was one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. Mahomes were 1-2. And he still is capable of doing that. We've seen that. But the difference is last year he wasn't making big mistakes. This year he is. And right now, if you look at overall quarterback efficiency rating, he's 18th in the NFL right now.
That's true.
And I think most people would say coming into this year, where do you think Jalen Hurts is going to rank statistically among the NFL passers by week 15? And I think almost anybody would have put him in the top 5. Right. And he's not even close. So this has been, this hasn't been the year that I thought it was going to be for him, but I'm sure it's not the year that he envisioned either. But, Pat, you know how this all works. Once you get to the playoffs, you turn the page and it's all different.
I know.
And if he gets into the playoffs and he finds it again, and this team starts to click, they're going to have at least one home game, maybe 2. Who knows? Maybe they go into the playoffs and they find it and they go to the Super Bowl, and then everything that's happened up to this point becomes sort of meaningless. There's no guarantee that any of that's going to happen.
But certainly, San Francisco getting dusted as they were by the Ravens, It's the same situation. There was an air of invincibility that was starting to be built around the 49ers, and that they were the de facto NFC Super Bowl rep. And I think that took a big blow. If ever a team needed a slice of humble pie, it was the 49ers. They got it. And
they got it big time.
Right. So I think, again, if the Eagles could they could affect a blowout of Arizona, just a solid, no BS win, I think they could feel a lot better, and they could feel better now with San Francisco having come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the Eagles are going to win the division. I mean, I don't have any doubt they're going to win the next two games. Be 13-4 going into the playoffs.
I know 13-4.
That's pretty good. I mean, you'll have at least one home game, very likely two. And so, Nick Sirianni has said it a lot, and he's right. He says, look, everything that we set out to accomplish at the start of the season is still right there in front of us. Yeah. We just have to stop making so many mistakes. We just have to work through a lot of stuff. My concern, I kind of thought all year, first part of the year, there were all of these things we're talking about now, penalties and turnovers and silly mistakes. And, and there was just a feeling that, okay, you got two new coordinators, you got some new personnel, teams have adjusted to some of the stuff you did last year. Okay, you're kind of just shaking this stuff out. But at some point, mid-season, certainly by Thanksgiving, you're going to start really clicking. You're going to see this team really start to put it together. And that really hasn't happened, and I kept thinking, well, they're going to get better. They're going to improve. And by the end of the year, by the time they get to the playoffs, they're really going to be playing championship level football. That's kind of what I expected. Now I'm at a point now where I'm not so sure that what we're seeing isn't what they are. I think after 15 games now, okay, the idea that a much better addition of these guys is there just waiting to be seen. Yeah. I'm not as confident of that as I was, say, a month ago. Yeah. I think right now this is kind of what they are. They're a team that has certain strengths for sure, but obviously have a lot of issues on the defense, and just need to play smarter and more consistent football than what they've shown us to this point.
All right. Very interesting. And I would want to wrap up with you on what I think is a very interesting game, too. And since you and I are talking so much psychology here, Detroit goes to Dallas. Now, these are two teams, Ray, that are probably people are more skeptical about these two than they even are Philadelphia. Detroit, just to me, has not proven at all that they are going to go in there, even though they did it week one against Kansas City. When they won that game. But even then now, that's been a little asterisk, that game, because the Chiefs obviously are struggling and have struggled a lot all season long. But I don't trust Detroit. And how can you trust Dallas? That two statement games the last 2 weeks, coming off a terrific run the Cowboys had. But they go to Buffalo, they get smacked. They go to Miami, and they gack that game up. What are your thoughts on, are either of these two teams, Ray, Detroit and Dallas, teams that the 49ers and Eagles really need to be concerned about come January?
Yeah, because they could run into one or both of them. The thing with the Cowboys, Pat, it's pretty clear cut. They're two different teams, home and away. They are just two different animals. At home, they're really good. At home, they are really good. I mean, like 40 points a game good.
I know.
They just play with so much confidence. There's that building, that turf, that whole atmosphere there. It suits the way their team is built, a speed type of team. Right. It just suits them playing there, and they play with unbelievable confidence there. You take them on the road, especially you take them outside.
Right.
Different ball game. Now, the Lions. The Lions, a lot of the Lions issue just revolves around the quarterback. I mean, Jared Goff can be really good, but he can also be really bad. And on days when he's just not seeing the field and he's making mistakes and turning the ball over, I mean, they could get beat by anybody.
I agree.
And so that's kind of what I see with them. And like this week, Detroit's got to go down there and play them in Dallas. I mean, especially Detroit coming off that big clincher. They've spent this whole week celebrating. Right. So, I mean, I think they're going to go down to Dallas, and I think the Cowboys are going to smack them around.
Yeah,
I really do. Yeah. Now, if the Eagles run into either of those teams in the playoffs, they'll get to play them in Philadelphia.
Correct. And
that'll be a big advantage because the Cowboys haven't proven they can beat a good team on the road.
That's
They've already lost in this building once earlier this year. And for the Lions, same thing. Could they come into Philadelphia in January and win a game? I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I think Dallas's best bet, Ray, and Sal will admonish me here because he doesn't like it when I look too far ahead here because of the name of the show and everything. But still, Dallas's best bet in the playoffs, Ray, is to go to Detroit because I think they're going to have trouble with Tampa. It's lining up right now. If they're the 5 seed, they're going to Tampa. And I think they're going to have trouble in that game. It's a natural grass field. The Cowboys, as you mentioned, they're built for speed. And Tampa could be a problem. And then besides that, it's Philadelphia or San Francisco. And Dallas is not built to win there in January. I think it could be another short playoff stint for the Cowboys in 2023, right? I don't know. I don't think they've proven anything yet.
Could very well be. And I was looking at, again, you never know quite how it's going to turn out, but I was doing the brackets, same as you were. And the thing I kept coming back with was I think the most likely scenario is Dallas is going to have to go to Tampa for that first game. And I think that will be a really tough game for them because the Buccaneers are playing good right now. Yeah. And Mayfield is playing. I mean, geez, to me, Baker Mayfield to me is the comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, I am just amazed at how well he's playing. So I could see the Cowboys walking into Tampa and the Bucs knocking them off. I think that is entirely possible.
I think I guarantee you that'll be that Saturday night primetime game will be Dallas and Tampa Bay. And I could see that. I see it too, right? I just don't know. The Cowboys, I like Dak Prescott. I think he's an earnest and he's a conscientious guy. I think he does his homework. But there's something in the psyche of that team that doesn't travel. And I think they're just not big enough. And they get San Francisco, they get Philadelphia. I don't think they can handle it. And but for the Eagles, Ray, I think as you mentioned, I mean, 13-4. There's nothing wrong with a 13-4 record, and they can still make this run. It's just going to be fascinating to see if they can psychologically get some demons out of that locker room in the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, I know. I think one of the big things, Pat, and I keep thinking, and maybe this will be the week we'll see it. The defensive line has to really start playing better. Right. I mean, you look what they've invested in that group, what they're paying that group, all those blue chip players. I mean, when we look at that defense, yeah, they got issues at linebacker. They certainly have issues in the secondary, but we thought that defensive line was going to win the battle week in and week out. We haven't seen it. And if this team is really going to make a postseason run, that defensive line is going to have to come up and play a lot bigger than it's been playing lately.
That's fair. 39 sacks this year versus 70 last year. You're exactly right about that. That D-line has to dominate for them to go deep. All right, the book is called Finished Business. At least that's the most recent one by the Eagles Encyclopedia. And, of course, I didn't get to talk to you. Eric Allen has made it to the final 15. Ray, I wanted to ask you this. You're a veteran Hall of Fame voter. I don't want you, but you're not a voter anymore, though. When you went to Comcast, that's right. But so let me posit this to you. Does this come down to Eric Allen versus Darren Woodson? Because with only 5 guys going, I think the likelihood of 2 of them being defensive backs is very, very low. Is that the way this is going to shake out, do you think?
Well, don't forget Rodney Harrison's in there, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Rodney Harrison's in there too.
That makes it even tougher.
Yeah, I don't think so because the other 2 guys are safeties and Eric's a corner. So I think that gives him a little bit of advantage. What he's going to be going up against is this is his first time as a finalist. And the other guys have been finalists before. So they've been in that conversation, in that room. Right. Listen, I got to give props to Paul Domowitch, who is the Philadelphia representative now. He's been fighting the good fight for Eric Allen all of these years to get him on the ballot. Kudos to Damo because he's finally done it. I absolutely think, to me, look, I saw his whole career here. And I felt like when I watched him play, I felt like I was watching a Hall of Famer. I mean, I thought he was that good, and that a guy could have played as long as he played, which is 14 years, at corner, never had to move to safety. He played 14 years at corner for 3 different teams, made all of those Pro Bowls, and you look at his numbers, his interceptions, his pick sixes, all of them. They're better than almost every other.
I agree. They are.
And in his era,
meaning those that are already in the hall. Yep.
Yeah. I thought when I was a Hall of Fame voter, one of the things that you try to do when you're making the choices between this player and that player is I used to try to compare the guy we were evaluating to other guys who were already in the Hall of Fame. If that's the standard, how does he compare to that standard? And if you look at, with Eric Allen's case, I would compare Eric Allen to Aeneas Williams, who played corner in that division at the same time. I mean, they were contemporaries playing the same position. And Aeneas Williams has been in the Hall of Fame for probably 10 years now. And I have no problem with that. I would have voted for him too. But if Aeneas Williams is in the Hall of Fame,
there you go.
There's absolutely no question in my mind that Eric Allen should be in there.
All right. Well, I wish him well, and I intend to try whatever social media noise I can make. I hope to do it. It's tough to get the 5. It's an impressive class. Reggie Wayne, Antonio Gates, Dwight Freeney, Willie Anderson. You got some serious guys in there. Rodney Harrison, Patrick Willis. A tough competition, but I certainly wish Eric well. And I look forward, Ray, when the final 5 comes out. Love to have you back on to talk about how it all went down and get your take on it. And
I'd be happy to. You know, it's everybody thinks it's great to be a Hall of Fame voter, and in some ways it was, because I did it for a long time and I did enjoy it. But it's so challenging to try and be the guy, and you're going to be telling. All those guys are great players. They're all great players. But as one of the voters, you have to say no to some great players, and that's hard to do. I always left that room feeling bad for the guys that we said, well, you had to say no to somebody. But I always felt bad because every single one of those guys is a great player in his own right.
You're right. And you're talking about the final 25, certainly the final 15. You're saying no to 20 great NFL players just to get down to those 5. You're right. You know, exactly. So for everybody whose door is getting knocked on, there's 5 other guys whose door should be knocked on.
And you know what it means to those guys, and you know what it means to their families, and you know how many tears are shed when they don't knock on your door. Because I went through it with Tommy McDonald for 30 years. So it's really hard. But listen, Pat, the Hall of Fame is supposed to be for the elite of the elite, it's supposed to be hard to get in there. But I hope that Eric Allen can get across the threshold, because to me, I mean, he absolutely deserves it.
18 years for Allen. So, all right, Ray, thanks a lot for joining me. I held you a long time, and I appreciate it very much. I look forward to having you back. We get into the playoffs, and the stakes get a lot higher. It'd be fascinating to bring you back to talk about whoever the Eagles do end up matched up with, and I would enjoy the conversation very much. All right.
Absolutely, Pat. Anytime. Happy to do it. Always enjoy talking football with you.
All right, Ray. Thank you very much. The great Ray Didinger joining me here on This Week in Pro Football, and always great having Ray. And what a couple of bookends that is. Sal Paolantonio and then Ray Didinger. It doesn't get any better than that if you're a Philadelphia sports fan. And then there's even me too, for whatever that's worth. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching This Week in Pro Football this week. Thanks to Xander Krause for producing. I do think the Eagles are going to blow, but I say that every week. I think they're going to blow somebody out. But Arizona, I just can't believe the Cardinals aren't going to mail it in. I look for a big Eagle win this week. We'll take a look at that playoff seeding next week as we get into the final week of the NFL season. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week on This Week in Pro Football.